to read. Got a throat like an Arab sandal.
We might as well start her up because it'll take a couple of minutes to go through all the housekeeping, but welcome everyone and welcome to our forum presenters. We've got Mason Ray there. As we've just heard, that this meeting will be recorded and subject to the recording being of suitable quality, will be made available on Council's YouTube channel via a link on our website. It's very gratifying to see that some people actually have been watching that and ask for further submissions as a result. Health and safety, we know where the emergency exits are, which are at the front and also at the rear here. And if we need to evacuate, could we please assemble on Texas Street and remain at the assembly area until the building has been confirmed clear. Councillor Gibson, would you read the...
No, sorry. Alistair's going to stand up for me. Since he's got it up.
We pledge that we will faithfully and impartially use our skill, wisdom and judgment throughout discussions and deliberations ahead of us today in order to make responsible and appropriate decisions for the benefit of the South Wairarapa district at large. We commit individually and as a council to the principles of integrity and respect and to upholding the vision and values we have adopted in a long-term strategic plan document in order to energise, unify and enrich our district.
Thank you, Councillor Plummer, on behalf of Councillor.
Thank you, Alison.
In our paper agendas, there was a stray page that came in, but then it's been deleted from Stella. But it was part of the minutes of the previous meeting. So if you could ignore that, please. Right, apologies. We have apologies from Councillor Vickery and Councillor Maynard. Do we have any other apologies? We have a move to accept these apologies. Thank you, Councillor Palenzo. Thank you very much, Brenda. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Conflicts of interest. Are there any conflicts of interest? Clear? No. Acknowledgements or tributes. Do we have any acknowledgements or tributes? Public participation. So we have two speakers today. Speakers, you have 5 minutes. We do encourage you to leave some time at the end for questions because we do step quite rigidly to our 5-minute slot. First up is Mate Higginson. Mate, would you like to come forward? You may know Mate. As one of our historians in the district.
Thank you, Your Worship, for accepting. You won't get the full bale of hay. First, I want to thank Bryce and his team for a wonderful work at the Waihinga Cemetery, Lichgate, and the general work in the cemetery itself. I'm much appreciative. Back in early April this year, I asked a councillor read these two plans, LTP and the square revamp. They told me the town planner would get in touch with me and explain such. Not heard a thing. 2 years ago, I complained to Mr. O'Leary about incorrect documents this council held with my name on it. A number of phone calls, answer phone, leave a message, and I'll get back to you. While on this subject, the question is, Zoya, the representative down there, Mr. O'Leary, and some other council staff must have been instructed not to reply with any information to Mate Higginson, so it would seem. I had a meeting with Mr. Wilson and Mr. Bryce Neems at 11 AM on the 8th of the 9th, 2020. Still no reply. On the meeting at the community board, 27/1/20, have been told by Bryce that a tree had been planted as the result of that meeting. Friday, the 4th of June, rang council office, at 9 a.m, read the questions about this LTP and the square. Told the person who would be best to answer my question was on another call and would call me back. Well, it's a long call because I haven't heard anything. Now, Nathan Fenwick's article in the Times Age, very true. All this has been covered before in plans from 2001 to 12. Plus, we of the Square Town Square Development Group 201 to 2012 plus had the traffic department, the counts, look at design, etc. Were there any accidents over the years and what? They recommended no obstructions, no tree boxes, shrubs, etc. Clear view through the SMP, blind pads, shoulder extensions. They took levels, drainage, footpaths, parking, all of this, not to hinder the view of the pedestrian crossings. When all of this was done, it would further slow the speed around the square. This has only been half done. No shoulder extensions or blind pads, etc. Crossings on Cambridge or Oxford Street. It has only favoured the few. This plan to do just the same few. I will quote Mr. Wilson's words here. The quote, council must form its view based on the view of the full community. It must not be influenced by the view of only one group. End of quote. What about the footpath from the town hall to Cork Street? That was promised would be done when the new WC was built. It only got as far as the WC. Now, I was nearly hit by a car on the 2nd of last month, turning from Texas Street, turning from Strasbourg into Texas Street. Please finish one job before you start another. It costs a lot more to do it the second time. Are you doing it just for the new Martins? What about us older ones on the other side of Martin Square? No benefit to us in this new plan. Now, my question is this in the plan. Do we need an act of parliament to change the road form round Martin Square as they did in the 90s and the 1920s? Is it too much trouble to ask again? Could you define the following? Soldiers Memorial Park, Martin Square, and the Square. My understanding from the Square Development Group, the square was from Burn to Burn, Ohio Street to Cork Street, from Strasbourg to Naples. Please define it for me. Now, the bad personal behaviour on Kitchener Street that I reported last month happened again on the 7th of June. If you can't control it now, what will it be like when all this other furniture and chairs? Now, small tables and chairs in correct places on a footpath is okay. But a footpath is a footpath, not a place for permanent furniture.
Thank you. We've gone to 6 minutes already.
I only have one paragraph to ask, please. Can I have the fortunate to ask that question? A few weeks back, I remarked to a councillor, I have been contacted I have never been contacted on the phone or any of these surveys. And would you believe it? I received this. Mr. Wilson's name on the bottom of it. And it says, please fill in. It is on a computer, just that one page there like that. I haven't got a computer, I don't understand any of these things, online, etc. And next day, I pick up the paper, and then the mayor says in the article of the Times Age, for more information, go online, website, Facebook. It just rubs salt into the sore. As I have paid my rate demand, would it be too much trouble to ask for a reply within the next week or so? And I do not want a standard expression. We are looking into such matters. Thank you.
Thank you, mate. Unfortunately, thank you.
But
We have no chance for questions. So thank you very much, mate.
I have asked that you get your question.
Pass that on. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
We now call on Dark Sky Society, Mayor Charlotte. I see you there.
Excuse me, can I just pass Vivian's apology? She's got another appointment.
I'm sure Ray can do that. I'll just wait for Councillor Colenso to come back to the table.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dave.
Go for it.
Apologies, Ray.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and councillors, for your time and this opportunity. The Wairarapa Dark Sky Association, formerly Martinborough Dark Sky Society, wishes to place on the record very publicly our sincere thanks and appreciation for the support and the work done by councillors and by officers in particular to assist us moving our project, the Dark Sky Reserve in the south, forward over the past nearly 4 years. Good things take a little time, I know. But today's meeting is very important for us, given that this will see the lighting plan changes implemented effectively after a considerable amount of work, particularly by the officers, making sure we have fit for purpose lighting controls to preserve the Dark Sky Reserve once we have it in place. We hope to have it in place before the end of the year. That'll be very fitting because the first official Matariki means that the South will be, in fact, we hope, a Dark Sky Reserve. So for your support, we are very grateful because one of the key establishment bases for a reserve from the International Dark Sky Association is that we must have a lighting control system in place, which is fit for purpose. In effect, making sure that the lights that are currently there, outside lights, eventually will conform with the requirements of the IDA, that they'll be under 3000 Kelvin in their luminescence or their colour. So we won't be scattering unnecessary lighting into the sky and undermining the impact of the reserve itself. The work that's been done on those controls, we have been in contact with the IDA on. They are delighted with the draft proposal, which is before you today. They say it's not just given, they haven't just given it a tick, but in fact they say that it's almost world leading with its quality and the nature of it. So we're thrilled with that. It certainly will be one of the bases on which we will go forward to them with our proposal, with our application, hopefully by the end of September this year. That said, I just want to alert you to the fact that there are many projects ahead which we will have to come back and have further dialogue about. One of those, for example, picking up Mate's point about the square, is the lighting in the square. It is not fit for purpose in terms of a dark sky reserve. We have been in dialogue, of course, with officers about this. We hope to make some progress on that. We'd hate for one of our showpiece villages to not be actually compliant with the dark sky proposals. We've got 10 years to do it under their rules. Secondly, as well as that, the square itself, there are other issues which we will have to get together on. One of those being the wonderful project of the Kaki Conservatory, which quite fortuitously is in our Rohe and is one of the most important astronomical symbols, I hope it will be, in New Zealand eventually. We've got a star compass, which is proposed down at Ferry. We have, of course, Matariki coming up, which will add significantly to the dark sky work that we're doing. And of course, the last thing on my list are infrastructure projects. And I think I have seen a note in on behalf of the association in relation to one of those infrastructure projects, which I'm sure you will give further consideration to.
Thank you, Ray. We've only got a couple of second questions, but can you let us know what your timeline is for approval from Dark Sky Society?
The International Association, we're hoping to have a formal application up to a couple of 100 pages, which we're now drafting, with them by the end of August when their board meets. And we hope that by October we'll have a formal response from them.
Thank you. Brenda,
Just quickly, you note that the lighting around the square, around the pedestrian crossings, is it too bright or is it not bright enough?
It's more of the uplights.
Right,
It's the uplights in the square. Everything that we have is fine, and it's the shielding, as long as the shielding lights that are.
I think there is a plan, basically. Bryce has already got that.
Yeah, there is.
Just one quick one. Are we operating, is this application operating in concert with Carterton? Yes. Are we out of step or are we all?
No,
we're all in the
directly
same?
in step. Carterton this afternoon will do exactly the same as we hope you will do this morning.
Thank you. Right. Any other questions, people?
And then we move on to Masterton. That'll be a somewhat bigger project.
Oh, well,
Great. Thank you very much.
Good luck with that.
Very,
Goodwill there.
very quickly, is there an intention with regards to future initiatives of reforming a different economic development style, dark sky group?
Yes, we have a proposal which we're working through now with the remnants of the WEDS group to look at the whole economic development issue. We, as a group, are a conservation group. We're looking at conservation of what is currently there and its protection in the future. The next part of it, which is economic development, is something which goes ahead alongside of us.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your time. Sorry, councillors, it's a day for running over.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So, actions from public participation.
Make sure that someone gets back to Mate to discuss the innovation street project.
Yeah, a comment from me would be that we are actually, as a council, this is an NZTA initiative and run by them, so therefore we have very little say in what to do, and also re-emphasise that it is a trial and it's only a temporary implementation of changes. Yeah.
With regards to that NZTA, they can only go up to the end of State Highway 3, the rest of it ours. The other thing is that I understand his concern about pedestrians not being visible. It's not the first time I've actually done it myself.
Indeed.
Can we investigate that?
I think we passed that on to councillor,
We have
council
actually
officers.
to investigate the life of the pedestrian crossings because it's dangerous.
Is this submitted with community boards or is it? No, I'm doing action on that.
Assets and services.
Confirm that assets and services to ensure a full report back to council on the adequacy of lighting on pedestrian crossings and stuff. Okay.
Can I, I've got a copy,
Well, issues, ones that have been raised as issues.
I've got a copy of Mate's presentation, which is left for us, which I'll look to Suzanne. So could we have that circulated, please, to each of the councillors, and then we can follow up if it's more than one point in here that is raised. And I'll take up the perception policy with Karen on
Okay, so we
this
give that
behalf.
to Suzanne to put into the minutes. Right, any other actions on we're going with that sky, of course, we're voting on that later, so any issues that come as a result of our presentation will be raised further on in our council. Right, do we have any reports from the community boards long-standing committee this meeting? No. Do we have any extraordinary business? No extraordinary business. Okay, now we get into the grind. We're now doing minutes for confirmation. There's quite a few. So we're considering the minutes from the 25th, 26th and 27th of May, which are the minutes from the LTP hearings and deliberations. I understand some councillors have already provided feedback on the visual to ensure that there have been some changes, but we'll do the 25th of May first. Are there any further corrections needed?
26.
25th of May.
Oh, you're always starting. from the bottom.
Oh.
They're not in order to start. 25th is good.
You're easily confused. So are there any, we're doing it chronologically.
Yes.
Are there any corrections needed? Okay, do we have a mover that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 25th of May 2021 are a true and accurate record? Thank you, councillor Chipson, seconded councillor Hens. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Now on to the 26th of May. Are there any corrections needed there? Jippy?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
I haven't taken my hand down.
Right. We have a mover that the minutes of the council meeting held on the 26th of May 2021 are a true and accurate record. Councillor Plummer, thank you very much. Seconded. Councillor Ems, all those in favour can say aye.
Aye.
Those against, the motion is carried. Now on to the 27th of May. Are there any corrections needed there? Yes.
Not sure if it's a correction or just something that was missing, but let me just bring up my comment. Just in regard to Martin Borough, there is a statement in there that says around offices we're looking to open up MA and MD, and we were talking about viability of land and support for a range of section sizes all down to 400 square metres. There was no support from me for that, and I was quite vocal at the time, and I know that's a matter under the district plan for review, but I was quite clear that I don't support section sizes for 400 square metres, and I do think the record should show that.
If we could note that. Sorry, I was missing for that. Eric, take it over. Is that fault? Yep, it's your fault. Yeah.
And I'd like to have, in that same piece, I'd like to have my my notes saying that I didn't want to support sections that were less than 400 square metres.
So less than 400. We'll note those. And with those.
And then there's one more.
We both have one. No, you can go
first.
All
Keep
right.
going.
In regard to Greytown statement, council officers were to look at when the new Greater Wellington regional flooding maps would be available. The maps were actually available at that time. The public consultation's just been opened for that, and it was opened at the end of last week, but the maps were available for viewing then. I'm not sure that the minute shows that they are or were available for viewing then. I think there were two distinct parts. One was maps could be looked at, and the second part was that there would be a consultation period that would be opened. The minute needs to actually say that the maps are available for viewing now,
Right.
with the consultation to occur being led by GDAP.
I suppose the issue with that though is those maps for consultation, they're not finalised yet. Until they're finalised, we can't really make decisions around them.
It wasn't about decision making, it was my comments about their availability.
Right. So,
Right.
and
It was to do with big decision number 2 on the rural roads. I thought that both Pip and I had, although she's not here to say anything today, had indicated that we didn't support the stopping of rural road funding at that.
yeah, I mean, I think that was raised previously, and the voting today might reflect that, but that was really just noting that we had discussed it. So whether or not we needed to note a particular viewpoint at that point is a bit hazy, but certainly make the feelings known during any future voting on the issue.
Thank you. It's just that Pip won't be able to because she's unfortunately not able to be here today.
You notice on all of them, particular viewpoints or slants were not particularly noted. And it's unfortunate that Councillor Maynard's not here, but it's the way that it
crumbles.
Right, so I don't think we need to, I don't think we need to adjust that, otherwise there's quite a lot of work going through the video recording to actually start recording councillor stunts and deliberations. So if we'll just go, do we have a minutes of the council meeting held on the 27th of May 2021 are a true and accurate record? Do we have someone move that? Councillor Haynes seconded, Councillor Plummer. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye.
Just subject to the correction.
Subject
Yeah.
to the corrections as mentioned. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. And now on to the 2nd of June.
Well, could I have it noted that I abstained from voting on that, please? Thank you.
The minutes on the 2nd of June, are there any corrections needed on this one? Do we have a movement? The minutes of the council meeting held on the 2nd of June 2021 are true and accurate record. Councillor Fox seconded, Councillor Enns, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
Those against, any abstentions? Motion is carried. Right, now we're considering B1, adoption of the long-term plan.
So, Mr. Mayor, if we took, there was an action for those minutes. When do we get to see the action on those minutes?
It will come up in the action report for the next council meeting.
So we're talking another 6 weeks away. 8 weeks, 8 weeks. Okay.
But that doesn't mean to say it won't be action. It's just that reporting and comment on that action report will be available to councillors to see progress being made. Right, so we're now considering report B1, adoption of the long-term plan 2021 to 2031. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Thank you, Councillor Plymouth, second Councillor Gibson. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, the motion is carried. So the rates resolution and the LTP for adoption are now in scope. If I can make some first comments, I would like to thank council staff for what has been quite a huge effort and in both the levels of consultation on the data that came from that. Certainly unprecedented in this council, I think. I'd also like to thank councillors for the amount of time that it has taken and the number of workshops to grapple, and I'm very happy with the way all the matters have been debated and sifted through to make sure that we are fully cognizant of all the implications. I feel that it is a balanced and sensible approach to our obligations to the community. It is unfortunate that we do need an increase in rates in order to fund these necessary infrastructure and service costs. But I'd like to emphasise that we have listened to all the submitters, and there are quite a few. I think there are over 800 for the long-term plan. And whilst not everyone may be happy with the result, I'm sure you may have been listened to.
No, let's reiterate that the teamwork that's got to us where we are today. It has been unprecedented in the scale of work and community consultation reach, both in terms of out to the community to gather their views, which has been, as I say, quite unprecedented. But we've received really good and positive feedback, particularly for the main priority in the LTP, which is around water investment. Very clear signal that the community wanted us to make sure we were on top of clear, clean, safe drinking water and managing our wastewater in a way that doesn't discharge to waterways. And then balancing act we made in terms of trying to find some compensatory savings inside the lines of our long-term plan. I think people really appreciated the effort. It was not just a whole lot of slices of a cake. We actually tried to show people, we had a big investment, what kind of things could we manage differently or trade off to actually achieve that. I think people really appreciated it was a cohesive plan. So, as staff, we're happy to commend this to you. We are at that point of no return. We have submitted to audit. We've had this signed off by audit. We're still debating a few words with audit, but there's nothing critical there. So any changes that will be made today, essentially you can't, because it means we would not be able to adopt the LTP if anyone wants to process changes. So we are at that point. We need to move forward. I just want to make a couple of comments about public process. I'm sure you, as I have seen a number of emails from individual parties who had submitted in deliberations and then wanted to provide further information by email to people or ask councillors to consider a few outside of the deliberations process. I would ask you strongly to disregard that. It's hard to put something out of your mind, ring a bell. But the process, and we've always, anyone who has emailed or contacted us subsequent to deliberations, we said, no, sorry, we can't respond to one person's view because we have to respond to all. So you can't re-litigate post the deliberation side. And for instance, even Mr. Lilly, with respect, mentioned a particular email that he had sent in requesting council to consider something, which I'll go into detail of. But again, we had to reply to them to say, no, can't. So it's just a reminder. I know it's hard, but so if you have read any emails or things that relate to the deliberations, you do need to put that. You must approach this on balance, having considered the balance of views across the community. There's often the people as much who have not written as it is those who have. So with those words of caution. Probably the one that in terms of, I'm sure it is going to come up, will be around the issue of the sealing of the roads. Remember there are two things here. We've always said that what we've been talking about on the road seal is the regular program of upgrades. It's not responding to a particular road situation. It's a particular road situation that is unsafe, cause of concern. We've always said we would deal with it. Because remember, some of the issues like sealing or bridge abutments outside schools, or where there's a safety risk, we can deal with that in our ordinary program. So please don't conflate those two issues. That's what I've heard people still having some active debate now. We can address issues if they are genuinely safety risks, and we can do that through the normal program of works. The issue that we've been talking about is a regular program of reseal, which should have a program approach. And simply say through that for 3 years. Yeah. Okay.
Also, I'd like to probably comment on our frustration with Waka Kotahi and their announcement of a decreased funding in road maintenance within the period of our LTP going to Audit New Zealand for consultation, which has been extremely frustrating. And we are, mayors are currently, the mayors of the Wellington region are currently writing to Kotahi to ask them some how we're supposed to maintain our roads, but outside of the LTP process. So just to let you know that is a frustration for us.
Just on what Harry was talking about, it doesn't mean that we can't change the wording of this resolutions we're about to decide on today.
Certainly we can discuss that when that resolution comes forward. I would also though like to remind you that with Three Waters reform, which is trundling towards us at a fast rate of knots, this LTP may have to be redone within a very short period of time. And that then opens up different opportunities for funding as a result of Three Waters potentially being removed from council. So just bear that in mind when you're looking at longevity of this long-term plan. Right. Are there any other questions regarding the resolutions that we've got before us? In which case, we'll just get into it. This is 29 resolutions put through. And I remember from last year that we feel like an auctioneer at the end of it. However, so we have, I'd like someone to move to include the lower, more affordable investment package for water and wastewater.
Sorry, Alex, are we going to go straight to the resolutions now, or are we going to go through the other are we going through the other documents? Because there's one question I have in the other documents that will.
When you say other documents?
Well, all the rates resolutions and all the supporting documents that go.
Okay, yes, certainly. No, that's part of the discussion. So let's.
Because I have one question on
sure.
the what's the paper called? It's the setting of rates.
Yes.
And I was a little bit surprised, and I'm sure there's a logical answer, but why is the Longwood water race more expensive to run than the Murrowa water race when it's a third of its length?
Sorry, Alistair, I missed the end.
So why is the Longwood water race more expensive than the Murrowa water race when the length of the Longwood race is a third of it's a third, less than a third? Yeah. So it just seems to be an absolute anomaly that we're
it does, and I would mention that when I first went on the water race subcommittee, that was the first question I asked as well. And I'm just trying to remember what the answer was, but
I can't type that.
It's the amount of maintenance required given the amount of clearing and blockages that occur. Is that right?
It's a similar amount of work, yeah, to run both.
But it's the clearing not up to the farmers themselves to maintain that.
I think there's an emergency blockage.
In the urban areas.
The contractors are pulled out to do that.
And how many emergency blockages have we been?
I think there have been 14 in the last month.
But so where are these blockages occurring? Because they're clearly not occurring on the users.
It's a matter for the water race subcommittee, a question to ask them, but we're just going on actual costs as opposed to planned costs.
I do understand. I understand that, but when you look at the farmers are getting the same sort of benefit, and yet the Longwood race are being charged significantly more than what the Murrowa race users are. And if the answer is, sorry, please finish. If the answer is that the blockage is occurring in town, that is an unfair cost to be placing on
And
the
that's
farmers.
for the water race subcommittee to go through the assets and services, not with the council.
Then we should be addressing that in this meeting if there are still outstanding issues that need to be resolved.
Thank you for that helpful comment. What we are starting to debate is an area that is through water race subcommittee and assets and services. Unless we want to shut down proceedings now and ask for a representative, the chair of the water race subcommittee to come to council. And also you've got to remember that that is a closed rates funding within the users of the water race, and other residents of council.
Look, I accept all that, but we are being asked to say, this is the rate we're going to charge you, and we don't have all the information.
But it's based on actuals as opposed to plans. So we're just recovering the expenses that are incurred on the maintenance of that. And the correctness of that maintenance just goes through the waterway subcommittee.
I do have a problem, but I mean, my issue is if the issue is occurring in town and the rural and the ratepayers, the water rates ratepayers are expected to mitigate it.
We're talking about Greytown in particular with regards to the part of the water race that was used as part of the.
No, we're talking Longwood.
Yeah, we're talking on.
We're talking Longwood, which is $88,000 a year to maintain and at 40 kilometres, and Murroa at 120 kilometres, 200 kilometres. 200.
We just don't have that. But the assumption is that this is what we've been paying to maintain, and therefore the rates need to recover the costs of maintaining it. That's how the fees have been set. It's a reasonable assumption. If you want to debate where the rating mechanism is, that's a matter for the rating review.
Agreed.
It's not a matter for us to take.
I think my frustration comes from we don't have enough information.
Well, we do in this instance, because what we've just been told is that the numbers that have been set out there are a reflection of actual cost to run the water races, both of them right now. And I think we need to make sure we separate the issue about what it costs to run and recover now from how we actually have a mechanism to recover that cost or set a rate for future. Separate processes. One is saying this is what it costs.
I get what you're saying, Rebecca, but what my concern is if there've been 14 in the last year or 3 years, whatever periods, what investigations have gone on to ensure that this doesn't occur again in the future?
So would you like an action item to refer back to the waterway subcommittee to proceed regarding the costs so that you have comfort in going in the future that the water races are being managed?
Yeah.
Cool. Or shall we do that through assets?
I think assets, we've got that information now.
I'm sure.
We don't. We just reviewed it, so that information.
Because this information will be critical for when we do our rates review as well, that we make sure that we've actually got the information. And that's my big concern is this a fair rating system that we're using? Or why is it way more expensive?
And that is being surveyed and decided upon within the waterway subcommittee on fairness, parity, use of the water races. It's quite like what we've been going on for far too long. However, is coming to a head at the moment.
I've just got one question for Katrina. So on the rates examples that you gave on page 117, are these are what we anticipate to be the finals? So you give, for example, an average percent increase for residential of 14.28, so that's the final number.
Yes.
Yep.
Based on land over 350,000.
Yeah, okay, that's cool, thank you.
Now, but questions, guys?
There was a lot of information to
There
review and
is,
an
yeah.
extraordinary amount to consider.
So can I just clarify, are we going through all the policies before we do the things? So if there were some changes in the supporting information and things like that, is that what? I've lost my train of thought of where we are.
Well, certainly all those policy changes have been distributed and discussed and are now coming through at the last day of the month of the year for adoption. So I don't think there should be any surprises there if you've kept up with the plan.
I think that the main thing is if there's something material, someone wants some clarification that impacts on one of the recommendations, that's the thing to pull out.
Yep.
That just Alice's question.
And we can do that as we go through the resolution.
Right, so we'll move on If everyone's okay to go, so
There is a separate resolution.
Okay.
so we have a resolution to include the lower, more affordable investment package for water and wastewater renewals. Number one, big decision option one presented in the LTP consultation document. Will someone move that? Councillor Fox, second. Councillor Hay, all those in favour can say aye.
Aye.
All those against? All those abstaining? Motion is carried. Oh, no, sorry. Number three. We have a resolution to remove the funding for rural road seal extensions and to review this decision for the next LTP. This is number two, big decision options one, presented in the LTP consultation document. Do we have a mover for this?
I'd just like to make some comments around this, that the question was asked of us whether there was a resolution for specific roads. That would never come up normally at council because it's an operational matter. So I think it may cause some confusion because there never would, resolution would only be we approve X amount per annum to improve rural roads. So I think that caused a bit of confusion. So I just want to make that comment.
So do we have a mover?
Oh, no, I actually want to have a little bit of a discussion about this because I'm not happy with the way the wording on this because we're taking it out of play for 3 years.
Correct.
And I believe there is a very strong case to have a look at it again at our annual plan.
That will be a decision next year when we might want to decide whether we want to go back out to consultation and adjust the long-term plan. At the moment, this is the resolution we discussed and put forward. Any change to that will affect year 2 and 3 of the LTP, which will then require it going back to the board.
That'll only affect year 2 and 3 if we discuss it again at our next annual plan. This here actually takes it out of play, as I say, for the 3 years. I would like in the wording here, the option that we can move it, it opens it up that we can at our next annual plan to revisit it.
I see what you've done. It does reverse what we've already discussed in workshops, but I am aware that there is some disagreement regarding this. What are the councillors' thoughts regarding, which I'm not in favour of personally, but how we, and also if you bear in mind my comments regarding us probably having to redo this LTP within the LTP within the next 3 years anyway, when the opens that up. But I'll be interested in other comments.
That's fine, but we're not guaranteed that we are going to be looking at it. Well, I would like in here clarification that we can, at our next annual plan, relook at it, revisit it.
I think we can do that at any time by council resolution.
You can.
Sorry, what was that, Harry?
Or annual plan. That, I mean,
So there is a proposal to rephrase it to remove the funding for rural road seal extensions and review this decision for the next LTP or annual plan. Does
I
that,
would be happy with that.
is what are other councillors' thoughts about?
Does that push us back to audit again?
We'll just check on that, Gary.
It would be preferable to give direction to officers so that we can put it into our work programme if there is always a move for reviewing it in 1 year rather than 3 years, then it's better to capture that.
Yes.
I have a suggestion, I recommend.
Okay, councillor Fox.
Yeah. My suggestion is that I'm harking directly back to one of the submissions that came through from Federated Farmers. And Federated Farmers actually weren't in favour of retaining rural road sealing. What they were in favour of was a really clear policy that council would develop around what rural seal extension should look like. So I think what we need to direct officers to do is actually to work on what that rural sealing extension program should look like and the review periods within that and how that influences an annual plan and LTP conversation going forward.
I was going to suggest, yeah, I like what Rebecca's saying, but I also think that the wording should say we remove the funding for rural road seal extensions for year 1 of the long-term plan and for years 2 and 3 of the long-term plan. We review that through the annual plan.
Aren't we doing that by the suggested change anyway? We were opening it up.
No, because I think what you were saying is that there is the option, if we don't review it, then this 3 will come through for the 3 years. We specifically need to say that we're only removing it for year 1 of the long-term plan, and that would be
The ideal long-term plan does not need it.
So, no, you're still doing.
Sorry, it does not need a consultation on the so what we're doing now is something that we want to continue for 3 years.
But we just say.
We don't.
We don't
Yeah,
agree.
ideally.
but we don't agree with that.
Look, there's more discussion around it, and I feel that they have changed our views for a lot of reasons, but I don't want to stall this LTP sign off by not doing it. But I want to do so that option is there.
Yeah, does changing that resolution require audit to review what our logic?
Before we go in, look, I agree with what Rebecca said entirely. We need to have a very good plan about what is our concept for rural roading going forward. I think we need to leave it out of any discussion on bringing it back or otherwise is moot until we have that plan and is agreed. But the other thing I would say here is that one of the big issues that I feel that is out there is that we are going to stop sealing rural roads. That's not true. We are still going to seal roads where there is a safety issue. And I think we need to show that in here. We need to put it in there so that people go, oh, okay, all we're doing is taking out a kilometre of sealing for the sake of sealing, but we're still looking after the safety of people by speed review, by sealing abutments and those sorts of things. That's missing, and that's what's causing the confusion.
But also, I think, Alistair, and through you, Your Worship, is that rural road sealing is never as cheap as the day you're going to do it. Anything in the future is always more expensive. We're taking out 400,000 for 3 years as it stands at the moment, which is 1.2 million. At the end of 3 years, we're not going to pick up 1.2 million plus starting resealing again. So we're always going to be on the back foot.
Yeah, but we're never going to get to the end of this, Pam. This is how many?
I know, but if we don't do it, if we don't do it, we're going to be so far behind.
Behind what? But we're not behind. We're not behind. You're saying that the end result is to seal 260 kilometres.
I really don't want to read. No,
exactly.
It's something we've already done in a workshop. Okay, we've already discussed this, and the consensus during the workshop, or even during the last council meeting, was that this. And I'm more than happy to propose that we add the annual plan in there. But anything different is going to trigger an audit, and means that we will be stuck with last year's rates increase if we don't get it done today.
I understand that, and I've had that discussion with Katrina.
Yeah. So if you're happy, we will include the words or annual plan into resolution 3 to allow it to be brought up next year.
Could we also please add in the bit about?
We could put a note.
Put a note in it
regarding
about safety and so on.
Because the safety sealing because of safety will not stop as a result of
But
it.
can we add the piece in that Rebecca has said as well, please?
Okay, so.
And a note.
Shall I?
We can read this.
Can I start this brief? So what I suggest is the items where you say remove funding for rural road seal extensions and reviews the criteria and policy for seal extension and for the next annual plan.
That would,
That wasn't the wording you
No,
used.
but we
So
were
the first,
saying,
anyway, let's get the
I
review
think
of the
I'd
policy.
be cleaner to do, just add the or in your plan and then have a note, this
Have a
does
note.
not replace, stop safety extensions, and it is the council's intention to do a safety review,
It's a review of.
a review of
The criteria.
Yeah.
criteria for sealing.
because that doesn't mean that we have to do one specific road. It could be any parts of the road.
We
in our
can't
network. Yeah.
We weren't
Because
talking
that's
about a
not-
specific
We were
road.
talking about rural roads
Yeah,
in
general.
So rural.
It's all general roads.
So if we're okay, then we'll say that it removes funding, blah, blah, blah. Then review the decision for the next LTP or annual plan with a note that this does not replace, stop any safety ceilings occurring on rural roads, and council will review criteria for rural road sealing.
Yes.
I think that captures.
So we're telling the public it's still
Yeah.
going on. We're telling the public we have the option of reviewing this next year, but it doesn't affect our budgets.
Um,
To this
Pointing it out to review safety on rural roads, I think you're just focusing on sealing.
No, my words, I did.
Well, no, there's two
There's two
parts,
elements.
there's two parts to this.
Yeah,
Safety and sealing.
safety.
Yeah.
So to come back to Pam's point about not catching up, well, you know, this review needs to say, what is our end game here? Are we looking at sealing 260 kilometres of roads? Well, that's just ludicrous,
I think it's-
but we need to have an end game. What do we?
What we've already discussed in workshops, taken to the public, not workshops in the last council meeting. Just informing them that things will still proceed, it's not, we're shutting down.
Yeah.
It's exactly it.
That's exactly it. And you'll put all the other commentary in the note.
Okay, so we're going to have someone to move.
I'll move with the
Can we
change.
remove funding for rural road seal extensions and review this decision for the next LTP or annual plan?
Yep.
The decision option one, the LTP consultation document with notes as discussed.
Yep.
Opposed, seconded, councillor Hay. All those in favour?
No,
Aye.
no, I'm not comfortable with it because saying notes as discussed doesn't actually.
No.
Yeah, what other notes?
To the public about what
And
we're
then-
saying.
So.
Change the note, but,
We're removing the funding, you're going to ask you to read that back.
Give her a chance to talk about it.
Remove funding for rural road seal extensions, review this decision for the next LTP or annual plan, big decision option one, present the LTP consultation document and note.
That this does not stop any safety seal extensions occurring on rural roads, and that it is council's intention to review the criteria for rural road sealing.
That's right, rural road safety. and
Safety.
sealing.
Safety and sealing.
Safety and sealing.
Are we okay with that?
Yes.
I think that's pretty, what we discussed.
It goes under.
I think that's in the way anyway.
Yeah.
Maybe, so safety. Cool.
Yeah.
Do we have a proposal?
Yes.
Seconded? Thank you very much. Brenda, all those in favour, say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Discussion.
I've been,
It's too early to have applause,
I've been
I'm sorry.
living along the bloody road since 6 o'clock this morning.
Well, you should have good roads.
Right.
Well, we just discussed that.
Resolution 4, that we include $400,000 per year for new town footpaths, curbs and channels to extend the urban footpath network. And number 3, big decision option 1, presented in the LTP consultation document. Any discussion on this? We have a mover. Thank you, councillor Plymouth. Second, councillor Fox. All those. in favour?
Noting the two cripples amongst us.
Favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. You give me an indication if you feel that you need to have a break. Number 5, a resolution that we stop urban burn mowing from the 1st of July 2021, it's tomorrow. Number 4, big decision option 1, presented in the LTP consultation document. Do you propose it?
Wasn't there a comment though that should not include this? There should be a mindful that certain people cannot.
I think we already.
Is that included in that?
There was always stated that there is an option for council to assist where necessary.
And this does not include your council berms and wet
Council
virus.
safety berms or rural berms.
Okay.
And do we have a mover for that? Councillor Fox, second Councillor Ems. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. One for the Greytown councillors here. Number 6, proposal to develop a new Greytown community space on the corner of Cotter Pier Streets, which is number 5, big decision option number 1, LTP consultation document. We've got some discussion.
No,
No.
Moving it, seconded, Councillor A. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. Number 7, we have a resolution that we keep the Greytown recycling.
Can we do 7, 8 and 9 together, please?
And that we investigate alternative locations for green waste in Greytown. And number 9, a resolution that we investigate alternative locations for Greytown recycling station. Do we have a mover for this?
Could we just talk on that one a little bit? Because Bryce has received the initial, what are we calling it, Bryce? The initial,
This is new information.
Stop.
so,
We don't want to be going on the council meeting on the information that was received then. And I don't think we need to go as we progress with the investigations.
okay.
It may be of interest to council.
Should you amend this question with Karen? It says, leave yourself the option, should you find an alternative, that you can close the recycling centre and relocate.
Yeah, that was what I was going to talk about.
I think that might be an option for a future council meeting. Because that is
It's
always. an
implied in there,
option.
it's keeping it open for now. but
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
actually-
Well, that's it.
Yeah,
I think
it's
that's
a
fine.
totally separate matter to discuss.
Just a comment is another option that we investigate an alternative space for recycling, which could include waste or recycling and green waste. It's not-
It's entirely open for any options through the investigation.
I mean, they could just be put into one sentence and separated out.
Could
We
we
could do, but we've got it in 2 resolutions and we'll stick to that.
Could we perhaps sort of word it rather than to keep, because keeping the Greytown Recycling Centre open means we're stuck in that location rather than
No,
saying,
No, it doesn't.
No.
well, it does. It says keep the Greytown Recycling Centre open. It doesn't,
say where.
no, it says the Greytown Recycling Centre. There is only one Greytown Recycling Centre.
If you move.
And so my point being here, saying, commit to keeping recycling available for Greytown or something along those lines, to say we'll keep recycling available.
Consultation. And we are getting a resolution according to the feedback we got from the public on specifically the Greytown Recycling Centre.
Yeah,
We
and
have got options within any future council meeting, given 8 and 9, to look at other alternatives in the near future.
so the feedback, the general feedback was, we want to have recycling in Greytown. It wasn't, we want recycling at that location.
The question for consultation was, do we keep the Greytown Recycling Centre open? And that's the resolution we need to act. We've created 2 extra resolutions to
with
allow us
the
the
green waste.
facility for future council meetings to discuss the issue if an alternative comes up.
I'm happy with that. I think that's, we need to approve what was discussed in the LTP. You can't start fiddling around.
No, I think
But we
I think the resolution-
mould things all the time.
Yeah, I think you're arguing against yourself there. We are arguing against, it's a non-argument.
I always argue
We've
against
still got the options.
That's the only good discussion I have.
Yeah,
You're in 2 minds.
so, all our alternatives are still open with those 2. Do we have a mover? Councillor Fox, seconded, Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, motions are carried.
It's a 7, 8 and 9, isn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
10, bring forward resourcing of an officer responsible for solid waste from year 2 as proposed in the draft LTP document to year 1. I think it's a very positive mood.
Yeah.
Discussion here.
Mover.
Mover, seconder, councillor Fox, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Motion is carried. And number 11, we increased the budget for Māori liaison by 40K from 90K per year at LTP as proposed in the draft LTP budget to 130K per year.
Make some comments.
Yes.
I had grave concerns about the process for this decision. In harking back to what Harry said about ignoring submissions that came after the date, effectively we had a discussion around the table with, in my view, not enough detail, and then effectively negotiating the amount that we were approving. And I just think the process was very flawed, and I wasn't at all happy with it, because we shouldn't have really had the chair of the Maori Standing Committee effectively negotiating what they wanted. That should have been quite separate, and so I just want that noted.
So I will note that this council is very open to having the Māori Standing Committee sitting at any table when we're discussing anything to do with Māori.
I agree, and I've thought long and hard about it, but I think it goes against all of our rules and regulations for submissions.
Could we have a comment from Karen, possibly on councillor Hayes' comment about the due process?
Well, as you noted, Mayor, the committee chair is entitled to be at the table with your permission and participate in those discussions. The resolution and the proposal that we contained in the long-term plan consultation documents that we were going to be consulting with the Māori Standing Committee on the best use of that money. So I feel that having that discussion at that time brought those discussions forward. The committee was a submitter, but the committee is also separate. For me, at that time, the committee was there on the invitation as the chair, and not necessarily as a submitter. So I would want to, you have to give more thought, but then my comments. Councils are happy with that.
But to answer the question, was it a breach of?
We'll take it,
To be satisfied.
we'll take it.
I was
Those
very-
people concerned.
Very happy to have that presentation as chair, and agree with that. But at the moment that we're discussing money and how much, that it was more appropriate to leave the room, to be honest.
And just to reiterate Harry's points, that the deliberations are the correct place to have those discussions after there's the submissions from everybody to have the, what exactly are the council going to be doing in the long-term plan, and that was held in public. So there was for me no inaccuracy or inappropriateness within that process.
And I think you also note that we did actually end up getting agreement on a lower figure than what has been requested.
Yes.
As a result of those discussions. Do we have any other comments?
We did have another party submit with regards to what we're discussing here. Which effectively, what them.
Sorry.
So we had the Rangatane and the other representative group presenting.
Yeah, but that wasn't on behalf of the Māori Standing Committee. They were presenting on the iwi.
Yeah.
But does that not create bias?
If you look at the Māori Standing Committee, and at that time specifically, Rangatane were part of the Māori Standing Committee, therefore they needed to speak on behalf. And that was a submission through from the assigned by the Māori Standing Committee. So, but that doesn't mean to say that the Rangatane account that we were looking at a way forward that was satisfactory. And also fulfills our obligation with regards to consultation with Māori. So, Any other comments on that? So the resolution is to increase the budget for the liaison by 40K from 90K per year as proposed in the draft LTP budget to 130K per year. Do we have a mover for that? Councillor Fox, second Councillor Jepson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Any abstentions? Thank you, Brenda.
Can
The
I
motion
just, before you say it's carried, can I just ask a question? This just says to set to 130 per year. It doesn't spell out that that's for the 3 years of the LTP, does it? Or am I reading that wrong?
it does per year for the LTP.
As opposed in the draft.
That was the information. we
Draft
received.
LTP.
Yeah, so it's just for 3 years.
10 years.
10 years.
But to be reviewed at the next day. Anyway, the motion is carried.
Yeah, it was just a point of clarification.
So number 12, a resolution to defer the capital expenditure for smart meter rollout from years 1 to 3 as proposed in the draft LTP budget, years 2 to 4 of the LTP due to delays in the implementation of the smart meter trial. Any discussion on this one?
I think it explains itself, doesn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty
So I'll move that.
Just a quick question. Do we have any guarantee that that's actually going to be carried out?
We have had, as you'll remember, at the council meeting,
There's an update around the project plan to address this.
however, we have had Wellington Water sit here and say we've seen the plan and we promise we will implement it, and that's the information we must make decisions on. So we had a mover, moved Pam, seconded,
So somebody else.
Councillor Fox, all those in favour, please say aye. Aye. All those against, motion is carried. Number 13, a resolution that we allocate $200,000 of capital expenditure for cemetery developments in year 1 of the LTP.
I just wonder, this is specifically for Greytown.
Yes, yeah, that's what I was going to ask.
Put Greytown
Greytown.
in there, it'd be a bit more specific.
Yep. Any other discussion before I put that forward? So the resolution now is that a resolution to allocate $200,000 of capital expenditure for Greytown Cemetery developments in year 1 of the LTP. We have mover for that. Thank you, Councillor Hayes, seconded. Councillor Fox, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Time. And with that, I'm going to stop for a cup of coffee, if everyone's happy.
You're good.
And you may- Meeting's adjourned. To everyone here. Let's start going. Let's right back into it. So we have got number 14 resolution regarding a representation and rating review and an increase in budget there. Do we have any discussion on that?
Yes.
Please to say yes.
Discussion about it. Yes, I was agreeing.
I'll leave you lead it.
Oh, right. I'm happy to move it.
No, second it.
Well, you're just racing ahead of me. I don't want to discuss.
No, I think it's good.
Can I ask a Katrina question? So that increase is reflected in our rating?
Yeah.
Well, I'd be really worried. So anyway, so I'll read it out. So resolution to increase operational expenditure for representation and the rating review in year 1 of the LTP from 60K as proposed in the draft LTP budget to 120, proposed by Councillor Fox, seconded by Councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. Right, number 15. And this is following the Waka Kotahi announcement. We resolved that council will not top up funding allocated to roading staff reduction in funding from Waka Kotahi. We have a move for that.
Just one thing, that doesn't stop us using some of our rural roading reserve if we have to.
For emergencies, yeah.
For emergency.
For a minute. Also,
I'll move that.
seconded. Councillor Quimmer. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. I will note on that one that even it may look like a foregone conclusion, there is a lot of kickback from that. Number 16, just that we note that no additional funding is required to conduct a speed review. Yeah, do we have a mover for that note? Thank you, councillor Hayes. Second, councillor West. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, the motion is carried. Number 17, resolve that no additional funding is allocated for mowing of Urupa.
We put that in with the 18, because that's.
And we resolve that pricing for mowing of Urupa be included as part of section 17A review of parks. And reserves.
I just with respect to number 18, we agreed that in this LTP we wouldn't fund the mowing. And so that would have an impact on budgets if it suddenly popped it in there. So I just feel that number 18 should be deleted altogether.
I think we agree in our conversations at the council meeting that if possible, and not at a ridiculously expensive cost, that Bryce would see if it was able to be done within our current body of work for other cemeteries.
So could we possibly have a comment from Bryce on that?
So we've actually just going through the section 17 now. It's on tender link, RFP is being finalised this afternoon. The only thing I thought this might have been more of an operational thing that we can come back to council with the pricing and not have it in the long-term plan. Is that my only comment?
Well, in which case we should remove this resolution and bring it up in a future council meeting.
I'd be happy with
So take 18 out.
Is everyone okay?
I don't
with
know
that?
the costs.
Yeah, I prefer that if possible.
Is everyone okay with removing resolution 18 and we bring that back at our next council meeting once some figures have been put forward?
Yeah.
And that's just with the fleetness, move that to an action. Move that to an action so it doesn't get lost.
Yeah, we included that because it was a reflection of the operation.
That's right.
Last time.
That's good. Okay, so with a resolution that we agree that no additional funding is allocated for mowing of Urupa. We have a mover for that. Thank you very much, councillor Gibson. Second, councillor Hay. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, all those abstaining, motion is carried. And I'm just going to instruct Suzanne that we have an action item regarding the mowing of Urupa and costs with regards to parks and reserves for a future council. Number 19, we have a resolution. We allocate $110,000 capital expenditure in years 2 and 3 of the LTP to deliver the Gateway to the South Wairau project. Do we have a mover for that? Any discussion?
Look, I just, can it not be that, is there a project called Gateway South Wairau?
It's indicated in our long-term plan that it includes development in conjunction with the Moral Standing Committee. So we'll allocate the money, the way it's spent will come through to another council.
Yeah, I'll move that.
Clarify that is going to be over the 2 years, so this it will be 220,000 in total, or is it to it with 110 half each of the 2 years?
It's total, it's not per year.
It's total.
Yeah.
Can we add the word total in there? Allocates.
We, by the absence of the word per annum, indicates that it's just a total, a single amount.
You can add it just for extra
Okay.
clarification.
Okay, so the resolution is that we allocate $110,000 in total capital CapEx in years 2 and 3 of the LTP to deliver the gateway to South Wairakei project.
Yeah.
We have a mover for that. We have a mover, councillor M, seconded. Councillor Colenso, you okay with that?
Yep.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is carried. There's a bit of seconding fatigue going on. Number 20. A resolution that we agree no funding will be allocated for a memorial to acknowledge Māori soldiers, and notes that the officers will seek advice from the NZDF and RSA on the correct level of recognition for fallen Māori soldiers. Move councillor Plimmer, seconded councillor Fox.
Could we just amend that to say we agree to no funding in this current LTP? Because we may put funding in for that later on once we've had Defence Force and things like that.
That is implied that it can come up at any future LTP. It's really, what you're trying to do is indicate to the public that there is not a permanent resolution.
But we're just saying no funding, doesn't it say for legal? Yeah, I
don't mind adding the for this LTP, but it is implied anyway. Okay, so I'll adjust that to a resolution that no funding will be allocated in this long-term plan for a memorial to acknowledge Māori soldiers, and notes the officers will seek advice from the NZTF and RSA on the correct levels of recognition for Māori soldiers. Moved, councillor Colenso, seconded, councillor Hay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is carried. 21, a resolution to increase the budget for civic ceremonies from 9,000 per year as proposed in the draft LTP to 15,000 per year. We have a mover for that. Councillor Hay, seconded. Councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Abstaining? The motion is carried. Number 22. A resolution to include an additional $20,000 in CapEx for compliance upgrades to the Marsdenville Refuse Station.
Can I just have a little bit more detail? Sorry, not that I'm opposed.
Yeah, that was around, compliance has changed around how we store some products, how we store paste, how we store oil. And concrete pads and stuff now need to be put in and covers, so that's that. Yeah, cool. Thank you.
It's actually 20 grand on that. Moved by councillor Gibson. Seconded, councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against? Abstentions? The motion is carried. 23. A resolution to allocate grant funding for community grants of 170,000 and youth grant funding of 75,000 for 21-22. Any discussion on this? I don't think there's any increase here, is there? No. Same as last year. Yeah, move councillor Plimmer, second. Thank you very much, Brenda. Councillor West. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Motion is carried. And we resolve that we undertake a full rating review in year 1 of the long-term plan and allocate $60,000 to this work.
Is this not a duplication?
I'll just get Katrina to explain. But basically, there was a smaller amount for what was the rating review. I think it was about 20K, and it's been increased to 60K. But that's the same amount of money that's in the 120K already under item 14.
Yeah.
So it's not new money.
So
it's just an increase. We had a smaller budget in the draft for the rating review, and we've moved that up to 60K.
But we've already addressed that.
We've addressed the increase. This resolution is really to state that we're going to do that work in year 1, and just noting that we have allocated that amount.
Yeah. So in which case, probably like to clarify that we undertake a full rating review and allocate 60K to this work as per resolution 14.
The idea was that the resolution stand alone, which is why we've included it, but we can, if you want to remove it.
At the moment, this looks like we're adding 60K.
Or just take it out. Take it out.
Money part of the reduction.
Okay.
I know it's going to go
Yes.
in year 1.
So the resolution now is we resolve to undertake a full rating review in year one of the long-term plan.
Yeah.
Move it.
Yep.
Councillor M, seconded.
Christ, everybody wants to.
Councillor West. All those in favour?
Clearly, it's a popular topic.
All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against? Vote on that one. I did, I said yes. Motion is carried.
I thought you abstained.
Right. We have a resolution to note the following proposed strategies and policies have been consulted on as part of the LTP consultation, and we adopt these strategies and policies. Now there through A through to H.
Can we go through the
Discussion on
policies
these.
individually?
You'd like each one of these policies to be individually moved, that's fine. So what I'll do is I'll read the first resolution and we'll and then go through the naming the policies one by one and we'll vote on them individually and discuss them. So we have a resolution that the following proposed strategies and policies have been consulted on as part of the LTP consultation and adopt these strategies and policies. Number one, financial strategy. Any discussion on financial strategy? Do we have a mover?
Just want to say thank you for tidying me all up. Looks good. Looks good.
So let me just find where I'm up to this heaps. Hold on. I've got, not sure where it starts. So does, on that financial, God, I hate this computer. Lost what I'm up to. Keep going. I'll find it. I can come back to it.
Well, we're.
Yeah, no, don't wait for me.
No, I think it's important. Pam, so we're fine.
No. I've lost the policy, so don't worry.
You wouldn't have raised it being an issue without something to.
Yeah, no, I'll keep going and I'll just.
We'll come back to that. The infrastructure strategy. Do we have any discussion on that? Do we have a mover to adopt that?
Yep.
Councillor Fox, I'm sorry, I'm losing it. Seconded. Councillor Gibson, all those in favour, please say aye.
You should be ringing.
All those against, the motion is carried.
Well, for next time.
What did I just say yes to?
The infrastructure strategy.
You're on coffee.
The revenue and financing policy, any discussion on that? Do we have a mover? Councillor M, seconded Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. The
Oh, that's
second-
in the financial statements. No, that's not in the policies.
Okay,
That's
all
what
right.
I can't find.
That's why I can't find it.
the,
Okay.
significance and engagement policy, discussion. We have a mover, Councillor Plymouth, seconded, Councillor Fox, all those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. Would you like to go back to the financial
No,
strategy?
thank you.
Do you want, we need
No,
to
it's
move
all
it.
right. It's not in the policies what I'm looking at.
Cool. So the financial strategy policy, we'll go back to number A. Do we have a move for that? Councillor Hayes, seconded, Councillor Fox again. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, abstaining, motion is carried. Liability management policy. In fact, do we have any issues with any liability, with all the rest?
None.
So we'll now, as one block, liability management policy, investment policy, development and financial contributions policy, remission of rates policy, remission of rates on more than freehold land policy, postponement of rates policy, and the grants policy. We move for those. Councillor Fox, seconded. Councillor Ems, thank you very much. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Those against, motion. And we now have resolution to note the updated fees and charges schedule for 2021-2022 is included in the long-term plan. Do we have any discussion on this, guys? The mover, thank you, councillor Eames, seconded, councillor Jefferson. All those in favour, please say aye.
Right.
All those against, the motion is carried. Right, and then number 27, that we adopt a resolution to adopt the long-term plan 2021 to 2031, one copy to table in accordance with section 93 of the Local Government Act 2002. Mover, that. Councillor Fox, second councillor Eames. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against.
Sorry,
This is the
it's in
thing.
there, yes, it's the,
The motion is carried.
sorry,
Yeah.
this is the issue that council,
Yeah,
it's in the financial impact
the
statement.
second, yeah. So what are you looking for? Yeah.
Okay, so that's it. Can I just take this an opportunity while Councillor Colenso to find a particular issue in the financial impact statement, just to draw your attention to the strategic framework documents. You'll recall that this was part of the discussions with the spatial plan, and it's taken a long time. Last year, developing this document. Through consultation and feedback from our Māori community that our kind of little blocks and our flow diagram effectively didn't resonate terribly well with Māori. And we had a discussion at one of our workshops that we'd like to better reflect Te Ao Māori in the diagram. So we've worked with the chair of the Māori Standing Committee and with Ariki Design and to produce this document here. And just a note of explanation, the reason why I'm taking the opportunity to explain it is that with Te Ao Māori, of course, there is a different worldview and very much more reflecting the natural world. And this is very much a metaphor of a tree, and a tree works from the bottom up. It has a very strong foundation. So part of the bottom is our foundation and our root work and connections between those parts at the bottom of the diagram. And then that grows up from that to grow to the top, to be the kind of fruits of our endeavours with our community outcomes. So just an explanation, we've included an explanation in the long-term plan document itself. And we need to start at the bottom and recognise that base, that really strong groundwork that we have, and then work up towards the community outcomes. We look to the strategic drivers and to our visualisation of where we want to be by 2050 as we move up through that process. So I just wondered if there was any comments on that. We think that the designers have done a really good job. Any views?
My comment would be it's much more readable and has better impact. It's the whole aim of communication, isn't it? So no, I like it.
It's really engaging. Well done. Well done. To put it together. I think it's fantastic.
And Harry made a right point that the PO, you probably recognise from the Māori Standing Committee there from the PO for directing their strategic direction, and the PO are very important to be that pillar and supporting our community outcome.
Okay.
I found it, thanks to Katrina. So under the financial information and statements for the 29th of June, we've got the schedule of, on page 35, we've got the schedule of prospective capital expenditure for the year ending the 30th of June, 21 to 31. And the first line is the dog pound, but we have only got 100,000 in there for the dog pound. We're not, we haven't carried forward as at the June 21, the 240,000 that we had already put into our budget. So Katrina has looked at that for me.
I have looked at that, and the long-term plan prospective statements are just a carry forwards or an estimate at the time when we do it, and Charlie has missed the dog pound off. However, when you look further down in the report, we are carrying over under the CapEx carryover the dog pound, so it will be carried over. So rest assured, it will be carried over. And I will contact the auditors and see if we can get that amended. I think it's going to be too much of an issue for them. But one way or the other, it will, the 240,000 will be carried over.
So that'll sort of be covered in 28, we'll change that.
And then going further down to page 37, we talk about the funding impact statement for the rating years to the end of the 30th of June. But we talk about specific rating detail given in the following pages have been drawn from and are consistent with the council's annual plan. Should that be the long-term plan? Up here, Karen.
Well, we can, if we know that, we can
the annual plan.
Yeah,
Okay, we'll check that.
we can, if we know that. Yeah, I'm not sure actually, we'll have to read it properly.
I just thought because it reflects the annual and the long-term plan this time, that wording should maybe just change to reflect that. I think that was there's so many pages to go through. I think that was it. Yep, cool. So thank you very much for helping with that.
So I don't think we need to change any resolutions. We'll note those changes under the next resolution, which I'll read now, which is where we resolve to delegate to the chief executive of the authority to make minor changes to the long-term plan 2021-2021 document. It's pretty standard. We do this every year. We have a mover for this. Councillor Plymouth, seconded Councillor Hay. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against. Motion is carried.
Do we need to do that?
They have been included. So Councillor Curtis is just asking whether the fees and charges that were discussed in the report, whether we talk about those separately, but they have been included within the long-term plan. Fees and charges within there, so they've been incorporated. It was just a particular note that they haven't been included with the fees and charges. Minor matters.
Okay, lovely, thank you.
Cool. Then we resolve to adopt the rates resolution and for the 2021-2022 year. Note there, because there's a slight typo there, in accordance with the Local Government Ratings Act 2002, including the Part B notice.
What is the Part B notice? Sorry. Do that, not to impact the Part B notice.
What is the Part B notice?
Oh, I should know that, shouldn't I? Yeah, that's the Greater Wellington parts,
Okay.
how, I think it's in that rating resolution, so,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm just trying to get it still to open it.
No.
Because that's ability to leave the
It's part of the rating resolution, a couple of pages down.
Okay.
We have a mover for that.
Yeah, I'll move now.
Okay, Jimmy, seconded. Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, motion is carried. And then the final one on this is that we resolve to carry over the operating and capital expenditure from the 2021-22 year to the 2021 year to the 21-22 year. And note the final figures will be presented to the Finance Audit and Risk Committee after the end of the financial year. We're going to move for that. Councillor West, seconded. Councillor Colenso. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Well done, guys. Well done. A big chunk done. No surprises there. So, and now having waited patiently there, so we will move on to this before lunch, where the item B2, the Wairarapa International Dark Sky Reserve Outdoor Artificial Lighting Plan change. Do we have a mover to receive the report? Councillor West, seconded. Councillor Fox. All those in favour, please say aye. All those against, the motion is carried. Mr. Watson, initially, do you want to speak to this report, or Mr. O'Leary?
Russell, take us through.
Yeah, thanks. Worship councillors, so this goes back to initiative guided strongly by previous triennium Mayor Viv and a liaison with Dark Sky Society and trying to work hand in hand with them and relying on information from them to us, then coming up with necessary lighting changes to our district plan to make it modern and fit for purpose for introduction of an international dark sky reserve, and introduce Donaldson to you, who's done the bulk of the work in terms of smart thinking for relevant controls for outdoor artificial lighting, including liaison with submitters in terms of their points of concern, and with the way of pragmatism in terms of new rules for our district plan. And noting that future steps or wider context being that the International Dark Sky Reserve is a brilliant fit for our natural environs. So it's giving recognition to our environs, bringing rules up to date in terms of modern technicalities, and also tapping into the tourism potential, which is also a good fit for our special district. And then looking forward, it would be aspects of ongoing education and explanation of the componentry as needed, and that will be a group of work which will mainly be undertaken by the Dark Sky Society as they get more momentum and purpose for what they want to do. But I will hand over to Deb for any componentry discussion.
Thanks, Deb.
So what has happened probably since we last saw you, just as an update, is so the plan change was notified earlier this year. We received, I think it was 10 submissions, so not very many. Of those, I think there were 6, 6 were in favour, and then 4 were in favour and 6 had minor tweaks. Primarily those were the likes of infrastructure companies, so Waka Kotahi, Powerco, Genesis, seeking minor exemptions from the lighting rules for things like for construction works that they need to occur on their areas that might be outside the designations, and for some things in relation to lighthouses and farms if the legislation changed and required lighting. The other one that we had extensive negotiation, talks with were the Wairaka Artificial Sports Trust, Surface Trust, and they run the Cleveland Complex. So their submission was primarily in concern about how it, that they wanted to be able to continue to operate and that it wouldn't be a hindrance on them. So we obviously made sure that that was totally the case, which we'd already done through our proposals, but what we have done slightly from the notified version is reached an agreement to just increase the level of lighting for sports stadiums that was at 4,000 to 5,000, and that's still well within the dark sky criteria, but it just enables more of a range of lighting to be available to them at this stage. So what we, through the direction of the commissioner that's been engaged by the council, we managed to resolve all submissions, and so this avoid the need for a hearing to take place. All parties agreed to the outcomes, and therefore the commissioner has now recommended that the plan change is approved with those changes. So yeah, you'll see as an appendix the report of the commissioner. But yeah, I'll welcome any questions.
I would certainly make a comment that I was very impressed, actually reading the report of the practice approach, and you can quite clearly see the way he reaches his conclusions and what he's considered. That's always.
And my only concern is that you're limiting the ability for sports facilities to have their lighting, or any facilities to have their lighting between 10 PM and 6 AM. What about, does this exclude one-off events?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So there's your temporary activity rules. I've actually been talking with the council recently just in relation to how that. So basically your temporary activity rules within a plan enable you to not have to comply with any of the other permitted activity standards. There are though limits on that, and that has limits on operation. So the thing for those is a lot of those activities will not meet that standard for timeframes. So like for the likes of a concert or something like that, the temporary activity rules have got a limit of 10 PM anyway. But then if you need to go over that, or it might be 11. It might be 11, yeah, 11, sorry. But if you need to go over that, then they'd need to apply for a resource consent anyway. And what would happen is that a consideration of lighting would just be as part of that consent process.
With regards to the resource consent, who's in charge of approving that?
Well, the planning department, yeah.
So you're just saying then that, well, for example, the music festival, they want Taranaki.
Yes, yeah.
If it goes 3 days, that's going to be covered by this, and they'll be all right to run that.
Yeah, so what happens is they're actually, I believe, in the process of making a consent application. What would happen is that they apply to the council for all of the things that they can't meet, like any other consent, ticking the boxes as to what you can't meet. So they would say that we can't meet the timeframes and things, but also that we can't comply with the district plan rules for lighting. And what they need to do is provide an assessment of how they can minimise those effects or whatever. What we've talked about with the council team is obviously for those types of activities, it's actually really minimal time and the whole concept of things. The main concern we're talking about with the dark sky is in relation to long-term light pollution. And so for those types of activities, we consider that, yeah, it's worth those applicants thinking about how they might, because this is a really valuable resource for the Wairarapa.
Yeah, two related things that the situation's changed, so we have a duty to point out to the applicant these are the rules that are coming up, hopefully, and that the applicant, being a believer in their concept, then they should be working cooperatively and trying to respond to what we raise with them.
There's nothing similar to what it's currently applies for noise.
No.
Yeah. So it's just another one of those.
Yeah.
Yeah, just saying, basically saying, here's the general rule. If there's an exception, as long as you can demonstrate how it's going to be avoided, remedied or mitigated, it's a discretionary consent.
I just
really have a follow-up.
I suppose sorry.
Then I'll
Just curious, how does this align with the likes of the TSB Arena where they have horrendous lighting? Is it in alignment and on the dark sky? Give flexibility for concerts to be done like that?
Wellington, that just doesn't apply.
No, it doesn't apply. I know, but how does it align? I'm not saying how it applies, how does it align with the lights?
They don't have the legal restrictions in place, so therefore I don't think there would be.
But no, I mean, I suppose for the sports, like for example, the sports side, and what we've actually done is tried to make it effectively more permitted, so that new sports facilities that are often run by trusts and things like that aren't triggering resource consent requirements. So it will actually be easier for new lighting for sports facilities going forward. I suppose with your temporary activity rule, it really just depends on what things they can and cannot meet, and then the council's responsibility is the assessment of those activities when an application comes in.
But normally when you're doing an event of that size, you'll be having waste minimisation or lots of other consenting tick boxes to be done.
Food and health. And
So,
Yeah, I suppose two questions. First one, outdoor sports was Clearville Hockey. Were they happy with 10 PM? Were they?
Yes, yeah. Oh, yeah, the current consent actually only allows them to operate till 8 anyway, or 9. So actually.
I've been there a lot later than that. Freezing outside.
Yeah, they were more than happy. And what we actually did is originally notified for 7 AM. What we've done is extend that to 6 AM because they they're not doing it currently, but there are a lot of representative hockey players who have early morning trainings in Wellington, so that may come in the future. So we've just covered that on. Yeah.
Cool.
And the other part is that, and I come back to the music festival at Taranaki, because I know there's a lot of local people who don't want it no matter what. So if there's a something in here, they'll use that to beat the stick and say, well, if they don't comply, and that's a concern as well.
I mean, I suppose in that case, it's like any other thing, the applicant will need to address all of those potential effects and how they can exactly avoid, remedy or mitigate those. And then it's up to the council to make that assessment as to what conditions or, if they grant.
I'll take your point that this legislation is designed for long-term effects as opposed to one-off.
I was just going to say, this could support people who won't come for a one-night stand sort of thing too.
Yep, yeah.
It could be, you know,
It's really, really interesting that we've actually benefited.
So Deb, just Rebecca's just mentioned we've got this month-long Christmas festival in Greytown coming up, which involves lighting up buildings right up and down the main street.
Yeah.
So in the event of that, it would only be limited to say 8 o'clock at night. Would that require consent in the future? For 2 hours each night?
No, so you're, well, you'd have, that would fall probably under the temporary, I think it's temporary activity that you make. And you really, you're limited in those. as
Only
well.
if we're doing over 3,000 lumens, I'm sure.
Yeah, I wouldn't have thought that.
Yeah, so there's-
Lights would be anywhere near it.
Yeah, but and then also there's the ones, so they should be shielded if they're over that or on. But it would be, I'm pretty sure that they would, well, that would qualify under the temporary.
And it would be a conversation about the nature and the type of lighting.
Yeah.
I don't think fairy lights on houses are really designed as the intention.
Oh, no, it's more the flashing up.
As I, Russell, you hit something.
Yeah, just for the councillors' background awareness and process. So this was a council initiated plan change in terms of being a good strategic step forward. So hence we needed a clear element of independence. So hence consultant in terms of shaping things, and also Jason Jones from RM Group based in Wellington as the commissioner hearing. So just that, and just stepping back a bit, anticipating a question, the core of the International Dark Sky Reserve is the Aorangi Forest Park, but the reserve straddles across our district and that of Carterton. And background, we did look at in earlier discussions, well, what's the best way to get there? Is it a 2-step or 3-step process? We went with the 2-step process of having and listening to the International Dark Sky Society, having the reserve be the combination for us in Carterton, and then second step, the challenge for tackling Masterton's lighting improvements, but being the second step and possibly extending the reserve. So we tried to simplify that into a 2-step process rather than 3. And as Deb has captured the technical elements of the change relating to outdoor artificial lighting, is new lumens control, lighting temperature, and capping when needed, all to mitigate any light pollution and preserve the functioning for the reserve.
Councillor Clinton.
Through you, Your Worship, I would like to reiterate the Commissioner's glowing report on how you managed to do this, the consultation you'd had with those people who had submitted, and the work that you had done to save council the cost of a hearing. On behalf of council, I would like to reiterate that and to thank you so very much for all the hard work you've done on that. It was great.
Councillor Plummer, you had something else?
Yeah, just moving forward, assuming that we pass it and Carterton passes, are we going to submit this then into the combined district plan as well, so it goes in there?
Go,
yeah,
the new lighting.
Yep. Okay, so
it doesn't need the, this is.
Yeah, but we're consulting on the combined district plan as well. So to get Masterton across the line, is it a good opportunity to put it into there so that it gets discussed?
So the rules that will go into the combined district plan only apply in the Dark Sky Reserve, which is identified for Carterton and Starkwater. Yeah, so it's in, it'll be, provided you guys adopt it, it will be in the plan. Since the council's adopted it, and then it becomes off of it. Yeah, and then there's obviously with the plan review coming up and things, there's an opportunity to look at how these rules are effectively working, but then also if Marston wants to come on board as well.
There'll be a
So-
strong suggestion
Yeah.
that Marston actually.
So we can,
Yeah,
so there's a very good
Yeah,
opportunity to
it's,
speed
the
the
rules
process
are
up.
in there, so we can just extend to how they apply.
Right.
That's
So, guys, you know, all okay with this?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay,
Really, really neat.
so we now have a resolution that we adopt the recommendations for the Hearings Commissioner as a council decision and direct officers to notify the decision in accordance with the first Schedule of Resource Management Act 1991. Do we have someone move that? Councillor Quenzi, seconded Councillor Plymouth. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. Well done, everyone. There is quite a landmark decision.
It's huge.
And
Oh,
we
yeah.
beat Carterton to.
Yeah.
Half an hour.
Exactly. I'm getting up here.
An hour and a half. They don't.
And Deb's now an expert on LTP as well.
Yeah.
Thanks, Deb.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Hey, you're
Well
well
done.
done.
Great work.
Oh, yeah, yes, please.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Now that we get to the substantive part of the council. So guys, do we have someone to move to receive the report from the mayor?
I know.
Thank you very much. Brenda, seconded. Aaron, all those in favour, please say aye. All those against, including councillor Fox, the motion is carried.
You got 80 pages of it.
Yeah,
That's all remits.
it's the remits, and one of them is for Auckland and
God.
anyway, so we've got four. Before I get into that, though, I wouldn't mind to comment that we, as a, that's on the agenda, that we received last night views on the Three Waters, and following consultation with Pam, might need to do some workshops just to find out what our stance is with regards to Three Waters going forward.
Yeah.
There's going to be a lot of media comment. There's going to be a lot of group meetings that would be nice to have your view going forward when I meet with in Mural Forums, Fora and such. So I just let you know that we will be doing that if you can attend them.
Correct.
The first one, of course, there's 7 remits there. What the conference is next. If we pass them, what I'm more than happy though is if you email any particular opinions you have about the remits so that I can convey them. Remits are odd beasts. The chances of them actually getting anywhere I haven't seen many remits actually get anywhere into law. It's more just advice to local central government, but they're still important that we do vote on them. So while I'm going to say that you delegate to me or to Carrick, please let me know your opinions and I can incorporate them into my vote and to Rebecca. Yeah.
Well, when do you need that? Because I've.
Within the next 3 weeks.
Oh, so, okay, that's cool.
Yeah, well, look, there's a lot more thought that I need to put into some of these too. I really didn't have the time.
Yeah, so that's all we're doing. The door's not closed just because we vote to delegate. So we resolve that the presiding delegates, we delegate to the presiding delegate authority to the mayor to vote on the 7 LGNZ remits on behalf of council. Move, Councillor Plymouth, seconded. Councillor Fox, all those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. We delegate alternate delegate authority to the deputy mayor to vote on the 7 LGNZ remits on behalf of council should the presiding delegate be absent. Move, thank you very much, Councillor Plymouth, seconded Councillor Hay. All those in favour say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. And then we nominate councillor Fox as council's third representative delegate under rule G13 of the LGNC. We're really covering our bases here. Councillor Wynne, seconded by councillor West. All those in favour, say aye.
Now, should we have a fourth one just in case?
Motion is carried. And the final one is a resolution to appoint Lucy Cooper as the council's representative to the Cobblestones Museum Board. Councillor Hay, would you like to speak to this? Since you did all the work for me.
So I met with Lucy Cooper. Some of you may know her. She used to work for Precision Planning.
Yep.
Very experienced in local government planning, etc. And she was delighted to accept the position. Importantly, she brings the average age of the board down significantly. And is a young family, so she'll provide quite a different lens for Cobblestones. She's very strategic in her thinking, and interestingly enough, there's quite an interest in the collections and exhibition space, so that's where she's quite interested. So I just think she'll be an extremely good addition. I think in the last 6 months or 5 months or so, Cobblestones have been providing their minutes, which from past experience are long and hard to wade through. So Lucy's coming up with a template, which is one pager and really key things that it's easy to read, and I think it's a good solution. So she'll be attending 6 meetings a year and will be receiving a report immediately afterwards. So I just think she'll be brilliant.
It'd be great if we do vote her on, that she could, for the first meeting, come and give her presentation first, so we can all meet with her.
Yeah, that's
fantastic.
She's a busy lady, but I think we can see.
Even by Zoom. Yeah.
Even maybe by Zoom if it needs to be.
Cool. So we have a resolution to appoint Lucy Cooper as the council's representative on the Cobblestones Museum Trust Board. Moved councillor Hayes, seconded councillor Fox. All those in favour, say aye.
Aye.
All those against, the motion is carried. And with that,
Alex,
Yeah,
can I
Alex,
just ask
will
a
you-
question? Will you now do a formal?
yes, we
Before you close the meeting, would you like to give everybody an update on the Mayoral Task Force for Jobs, seeing as we won't meet until
It's not on the agenda, but I can give it
just a verbal,
Right.
probably quite good if you had good results.
Cool. Okay, and with that, thank you, everyone. I declare the meeting closed, and it's a lot quicker than I expected. Thank you, well done.
Very good.
Well done.
Cool. So, council officers, you can